Chapter 6, Lesson 4. Today we're going to talk about rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. So these are special types of parallelograms. All of these four-sided figures are parallelograms. So every characteristic that's true for a parallelogram is also true for a rectangle, rhombus, and square. First, the definitions. A rhombus is a parallelogram, so it has four sides, and the key thing about a rhombus is that all four sides are congruent. So I'd make sure to write rhombus and maybe even this picture and write all four sides congruent. A rectangle is a parallelogram, and the key thing for a rectangle is that every angle is 90 degrees. So in a rectangle, every angle is 90 degrees. And a square is a parallelogram, and that has both 90 degrees and all four sides are equal. So if I'm looking at this Venn diagram right here, if I can have a rhombus, a rectangle, and a square, the characteristics that both share right angles would be a rectangle and a square. So I'm going to write rectangle right here, and I'm going to write square in the middle, because square is the only one that has both right angles, and a rhombus has all four sides congruent. So every square is going to be a rhombus, and every square is going to be a rectangle. However, it does not go the other way. If I have a rectangle, there's no conclusion. I can't just conclude that it's a square. That's no-go. Sad face. So when I'm looking at these three pictures, even though they do not look like a rectangle, rhombus, or square, I have to go by what is given in the picture. That's going to tell me which one is which. So if I look at this first one, every one has 90-degree angles. So if you look back, the only thing that has 90-degree angles would be a rectangle. In this one, I have all four sides are congruent. The only one that has all four sides congruent would be a rhombus. And my last one, it has four sides congruent and all four angles are 90 degrees. So this is the only one that I can conclude is a square. Again, you can't just go off what it looks like. You have to go off of what information is given to you. So this problem, it says that this is a parallelogram. Is this a rhombus, rectangle, or square? Well, I'm going to use the characteristics I know of a parallelogram to fill in on my picture, and maybe that will help me. I know if I have a parallelogram that my opposite angles are congruent. So I can put that this angle is 90 degrees. I also know in a parallelogram that consecutive angles are supplementary. So if I know this angle F is 90 degrees and subtract that from 180, I know angle J is 90, and I also know angle G is 90. So far, it looks like I definitely have a rectangle because all four angles are 90 degrees. Other characteristics I know about a parallelogram, if I have a parallelogram, then I know my opposite sides are congruent. So in my picture, I can say that GF is the same thing as HJ, and FJ is the same thing as GH. So now I have everything I need, and it looks like on this picture, since I have 90-degree angles and I have four sides congruent, that this would be a square. So again, for the homework quiz, it'd be a good idea to write down why this would be a square. With the different special parallelograms, I have more characteristics. So if I know a parallelogram is a rhombus, so if I have a rhombus, that means, so let's say this is my rhombus, diagonals are perpendicular. So in this picture, if I draw my diagonals, the spot where it's perpendicular is going to be at the middle, at the center. That's where the rhombus would be perpendicular. So I'd make sure to write that down. So that's 6-13. Now 6-14 would be if I have a rhombus, then each diagonal bisects the opposite. So again, I'm going to write in my diagonals. So what this is saying is it bisects at the angle measurement. So this small angle is congruent to this small angle. this small angle is congruent to this small angle. This angle is congruent to this angle, and this angle is congruent to this angle. So at every point, it cuts the angle in half. At every point, it cuts the angle in half. The diagonal does. Again, make sure to write that down. So what are the measures of the numbered angles? Well, if I'm looking at this, it's saying that this is a rhombus, so that definitely means it's a parallelogram. So if angle D is 100, I know angle 1 has to be 100 degrees because of opposite angles are congruent, because that's characteristics of a parallelogram. I also know that my consecutive angles are equal to 180 degrees. So angle A plus angle B are equal to 180. So if I know angle B is 100, I could figure out what angle A is. And angle A would be equal to 80 degrees. So this whole angle here is 80 degrees. But I have to figure out what 3 and 2 are. Well, using my last characteristics of 6-14, this is a diagonal because it goes from two of my opposite angles. That means this angle is congruent to this angle. So really, angle 3 plus angle 2 equals 80 degrees. And I could put the same variable for each angle. So 2x is going to be equal to 80. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and x is going to be 40 degrees. So angle 3 is 40 degrees, and angle 2 is 40 degrees, because my diagonal bisects each angle. So angle 3 and 2 are the same measurement. And if a parallelogram is a rectangle, then its diagonals are congruent. So what that is saying, if I have a rectangle, I'm going to label A, B, C, and D. This diagonal, along with this diagonal, they're going to be the same. So AC will be congruent to BD. This is only true in rectangles and squares, because every square is a rectangle. So this would be 6-15. So it's saying that this is a rectangle, PN. This whole length is 7x minus 8. And MO, this whole length is 4x plus 10. What is the length of PN? So I want to figure out what the whole length is. Well, since I just figured out, or was told, that all diagonals are congruent in a rectangle, if I know that those two are congruent, that means they're equal to each other. So I can set those equations equal to each other. And I'm going to solve for x. So first I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. And then I'm going to add 8. And then I'm going to divide by 3. So I have x is equal to 6. That's not what my question's asking. It's asking for Pn. So if I look at Pn, that's 7 times 6 plus 8. That'd be 42 plus 8, which is going to be equal to 50, and that would be my final answer. Make sure you fill out the Google form and submit your answers. If you did not write down any information, go back and write down information, unless if you can answer each one of those questions off the top of your head. Have a wonderful evening.